Welcome back to the Ancestral Findings podcast. Today we're going to talk about a vice president who was elected to one of the highest offices in the land and barely had time to take a breath before it was over. His name was William Rufus DeVane King. He only served 45 days as vice president of the United States under Franklin Pierce, but don't let that number fool you. Behind that short term was a lifetime of service. A man who helped shape the South, served in Congress for decades, and had connections that reached back to the earliest settlers of North Carolina. He was a planter, a diplomat, a senator, and for a brief, flickering moment, a vice president. In this episode of The Forgotten Seconds, we explore the life and legacy of William R. King, a man whose story was nearly lost to history, but whose roots go deeper than you might expect. King was born on April 7, 1786, in Sampson County, North Carolina. His story begins in the early American South, with family lines that stretch across oceans. His father, William King, was of Irish descent. The King family likely came from Ulster and settled in North Carolina during the early 1700s. They weren't just farmers. They became landowners, community leaders, and part of the region's rising class of settlers. His mother, Margaret DeVane, descended from French Huguenots, Protestants who fled persecution in Europe. The DeVanes settled in the Carolinas as well, bringing with them a tradition of independence, hard work, and civic life. Her father, John DeVane, was a patriot in the American Revolution. These two families, the Kings and the DeVanes, came together to raise a son who would be destined for national service. William R. King received a classical education and attended the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, graduating in 1803. He read law under Judge William Duffy and was admitted to the bar by 1806, but it didn't take long for politics to find him. By 1807, he was serving in the North Carolina House of Commons. Just a few years later, he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. He was young, smart, and already thinking about the bigger picture. He supported the War of 1812 and aligned himself with President James Madison. Then came a diplomatic opportunity. King was appointed to a mission abroad, working alongside William Pinckney in Russia and Naples. That experience would shape his thinking on international issues for years to come. When he returned, he moved west into what was then Alabama territory. He bought land near Selma and established a cotton plantation he named Chestnut Hill. Like many planters of his day, he built his wealth using enslaved labor. By the 1820s, he was one of the largest slaveholders in Alabama. He was also becoming one of its most powerful men. When Alabama became a state in 1819, King was elected one of its first U.S. senators. He would serve in the Senate for almost 30 years. King wasn't loud or dramatic. He didn't seek headlines, but he was respected by just about everyone. He was often chosen as president pro tempore of the Senate, a role that placed him in the presidential line of succession. He aligned himself with President Andrew Jackson and supported many of Jackson's policies, including Indian removal and opposition to the National Bank. In 1844, he was appointed minister to France by President James K. Polk. King worked to smooth relations and negotiate trade matters during a tense time in global politics. His reputation as a calm and capable diplomat continued to grow, but one of the most talked about parts of King's life was his long, close friendship with James Buchanan, who would later become president. The two men lived together in Washington for over a decade, sharing meals, conversation, and a home. Newspapers joked about them. Some called them the Siamese twins. Andrew Jackson used more colorful language. Historians have wondered about their relationship ever since. We don't have all the answers, but we do know this. King never married, he had no children, and Buchanan was the same. Whatever their bond was, it was lasting, and they remained close friends throughout their lives. In 1852, King was nominated as vice president on the Democratic ticket with Franklin Pierce, but by then, his health was failing. He had tuberculosis, what they called consumption back then, and he was desperately ill. Hoping for recovery, he traveled to Cuba, where the warm air might offer some relief. It didn't. In a highly unusual moment, Congress passed a special act allowing King to take the oath of office outside the United States. On March 4th, 1853, in Matanzas, Cuba, William R. King was sworn in as the 13th Vice President of the United States. He returned to Alabama a few weeks later, frail and near death. On April 18th, 1853, just 45 days after taking office, he died at Chestnut Hill. He never presided over the Senate. He never issued a statement, but for a short time he held the second highest office in the nation. King was buried in Live Oak Cemetery in Selma, Alabama. His grave is marked with a tall monument. His estate passed to relatives in the King and DeVane families, and his papers are now held in the Alabama Department of Archives and History. William R. King's legacy is complex. He was a powerful politician, a Southern planter, and a Unionist who tried to hold the center during years of rising tension. He represented Alabama, but his outlook was national and sometimes international. His family history reflects the early Southern elite, blending Irish and French Protestant roots. He was shaped by privilege, education, and a long career in Washington. And while illness cut his vice presidency short, his role in shaping the early 1800s was significant. He was the steady voice in the room, the calm during the storm, the man trusted to keep things moving when tempers ran hot. And then he was gone. William R. King may be remembered for the shortest vice presidency in American history, but as we've seen today, he lived a life packed with service, legacy, and deep family roots. From North Carolina to Cuba to Alabama, his path reminds us that the past is full of stories waiting to be found. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and share it with anyone who loves history, genealogy, or the little-known stories of early America. If you've got a hard-to-find ancestor you're stuck on, I'd love to hear about it. Just head over to ancestralfindings.com and click on Contact to send me a message. While you're there, take advantage of our free weekly genealogy lookups. Explore thousands of articles and enjoy hundreds of podcast episodes. We've been helping family history researchers since 1995. And if you're looking for even more, check out our Genealogy Gold Q&A series over on Patreon. Thanks for listening, and as always, happy searching.